Legal wedding, symbolic destination wedding. What's the difference? Let's talk about that. Hi, this is Jack with Vacationese. Last week, as you know, I spoke to you about symbolic destination weddings, and as I mentioned, probably 95, 90, 99% of destination weddings are symbolic weddings. So now let's talk about the other percentage, which are legal weddings. So what is a legal destination wedding? You're going to another country, and I'm going to generalize in this video and talk about our top 3 locations, which are Mexico, the Dominican Republic, and Jamaica. Now, if you're going to go to any of these places and you live in the US or Canada or pretty much anywhere else in the world, you need to bring something back from that destination to wherever you live to prove that you're legally married. So that is the legal wedding. Again, with the symbolic wedding, you're legally going to get married where you live, go to one of the destinations and have what looks like a wedding ceremony, a symbolic ceremony in front of people, and then you're going to come home and you'll be legally married because you were already legally married before you left. But if you're going to do a legal destination wedding, you need to make sure that you select this up front in dealing with your travel professional. You let us know, you let the resort know, because there are additional steps and things that have to be done if you are going to legally get married, so when you get home, you are recognized as married. Now let's talk about types of legal weddings. So you're going to get married legally. Now you can do this multiple ways. So let's talk religious. So yes, you can have a religious legal wedding in any of the destinations. Let's say you want a Catholic wedding. Let's say you want a minister. Let's say you want to do a Muslim or Hindu wedding, a Jewish wedding. Whatever it may be, as long as you have the correct paperwork and you tell the planner up front, this is what you want, they will coordinate to work with the legal entity that can marry you in that destination and the religious. And in some cases, it's the same thing, but it's nothing that you can spring on someone a week before your wedding and say, hey, I just decided. Some resorts can do that and some destinations can do that, but there is paperwork typically that is required. Now, let's say you don't want religious. That's fine. You can still get legally married in any of the destinations without a legal representative. Most resorts, most destinations will supply what I will call a justice of the peace, a representative of some entity of the government that will come and do your wedding for you. Now just know that if you are going to have a legal destination wedding, you will need to get to the resort a few days earlier, probably 2 to 3 business days prior to your wedding. You will have to complete some additional paperwork, and this is just generalized, but you'll have to complete additional paperwork prior to arriving. Now the wedding planners at the resort or the wedding planner you may work with, is once they know it's a legal wedding, they'll have all this lined up for you. Know that the legal weddings are going to cost more than the symbolic weddings because there are administrative fees. If you're in a country that does not speak English as a primary language, all your documents will need to be translated into whatever language of where you live so that they can prove you're legally married from that other country to your new home country. And there may be some medical testing or blood work in certain places. Okay, getting married legally will also trigger some additional paperwork to prove that you are not married, or if you were married, you are divorced. Again, as you go through the application process with the wedding team at the resort or the wedding planner you're working with, and they know that you are doing a legal wedding, they're going to ask you for some paperwork and some questions related to that. But it's very important to know that you will need to prove things versus if you are doing a symbolic wedding. Again, because it's symbolic, they're going to go on the premise that everything is legal in the United States and you're symbolically getting married there. Legally, not the same. You have to have everything, all the ducks in order. Okay, let's just talk some specifics here. And again, I'm just going to talk about our top 3 destinations, which are Mexico, and it it's pretty much the same whether it's Cancun, Riviera Maya, Tulum, Cozumel, Playa, Cabo. It's Mexico. So here's the thing. You're going to have to get there a couple days. Most of the resorts will require you 2 to 3 business days prior to your wedding ceremony date to get some paperwork done. And remember, in Mexico, the language there is Spanish, even though everybody seems to speak English. But the language is going to be Spanish, which means your documents are going to be in Spanish. So there will be some fees you will pay. I talked to someone at one of the Dreams resorts this week, and I was told the fees range between $400 and $800 for this package of translation services and paperwork fees. Now, you will also be required potentially to go off-site and have some notary paperwork done, or they may do it at the resort. Again, each resort's a little bit different. In Mexico, there is also a blood test required. Again, that will be fitting in within that 2 or 3 days of you getting there. The coordinator will do that. Again, don't let any of this scare you. The issue is that you just have to communicate with your travel professional as well as the planner at the resort that you are going to have a legal wedding. Once they know that, they're going to have all of this stuff lined up. Most of them have great checklists for you and can make sure this happens. Now, as part of that legal, the resorts will typically then supply what we will call a justice of the peace, a magistrate, but it will be a representative from the local government. Now, let's say not only do you want that, but you want a religious ceremony as part of that. That's fine. Just let the resort know, because in some cases, the religious person may be the same person that is the representative or is appointed as a representative of the government. As an example, if you do want a Catholic wedding, that presents a little bit more complications for legal, is you must communicate with your local parish so they communicate with the local Mexican parish as well. You may need some paperwork, a letter of introduction I've seen, and those things will be communicated again via the wedding planner. Going back to Catholic, I have also seen there are a very few limited number of resorts that do have Catholic approved venues. So just because you want to get married Catholic, you need to make sure when you're working with your travel planner, please tell them that up front, because it's not something last minute you can say to the wedding planner, I know we're getting married legally, but oh, by the way, I want to have a Catholic wedding too, because most of the resorts are not approved by the Catholic Archdiocese or don't have venues. So if you do spring that on them last minute, they may say to you, well, that's great, but we're going to have to go to the Catholic Church, which causes other issues. Now, in terms of the ceremony, again, the ceremony is going to be managed by the person representing the government or the religious entity. You can somewhat customize that. My experience has been that you can write your vows. They may integrate them into what you're doing. I would ask the wedding planner how flexible the people they deal with are on that, and how maybe you can have a call or a Zoom meeting with them to see if they are flexible for that. But again, the key is with the legal weddings, it's kind of a formula that they're going to follow, and you have a nice ceremony, and it's very similar to a ceremony at home, but just know it's less customizable than if you did the symbolic ceremony. But yes, people do get married in Mexico all the time legally. They have the process in place, no problem. But again, just know it's less flexible, more expensive, and you'll need to be there a couple days longer than you expected just to make sure all the paperwork is processed in order. But once you have a legal wedding there, you can bring it home and you're legally married. Now let's look at the Dominican Republic, Punta Cana, Cap Cana, any of the cities up and down the coast. It's the same, Santo Domingo. Now here's the nice thing about the Dominican Republic, no blood work required. Okay, great. But they do have paperwork, and again, primary language down there is Spanish, so you will be dealing with translation services. They're going to supply a justice of the peace or someone from the government if you don't want religious. And again, there's going to be additional cost to do the legal wedding there. Plan on being there again 2 to 3 days prior Again, you don't need the blood, but still plan on being there 2 to 3 days prior, business days of your wedding ceremony date. This way they'll make sure everything is completed. And most of the resorts I've worked with throughout the Dominican Republic do the destination wedding planning with the legal in mind very well. But I think it's just something when you talk with your travel professional and picking a resort, you identify up front that you do want to do legal, so that person can talk with the resorts that they have in mind and confirm with them that on the dates you want, you can do legal, because what I've seen is there are certain dates that certain people can't do legal. Now in Jamaica, it really limited paperwork. I mean, you have to prove you're over 18. You do have to prove citizenship in the country that you reside in. It's important. And that you're going to have to do that anyway because you're bringing your passport with, right? So you want to talk to the planner at the resort about that. My passport, birth certificate, what are the required documents you need? But Jamaica tends to be a little bit easier than the other countries, again, because English is the primary language. And they seem to be able to get the legal weddings done a little bit faster than other places. Same thing with the ceremony. It's going to be done by a minister or a justice of the peace. It's something you want to talk with the planner at the resort if you have a preference. If you want religious, you can talk to them and see what opportunities are there for what religious leaders are in that destination, whether it's Ocho Rios, Negril, Montego Bay that you're getting married in. But it's something, I think, with any of this stuff related to planning a destination wedding, legal destination wedding ceremony, you want to address this stuff all up front with us, Vacationees, your travel planner, whoever you're working with, so that when we help you identify a list of resorts to get married at, we can make sure that we meet all the criteria outside of the food and the venue and the great vacation experience. We need to understand what you're looking for. I have had over the years people say to me, we've picked the place, and now it's like 2 months before their wedding, all their guests are set, and they say, well, we've decided we don't want to do symbolic anymore, we want to do legal. And we try to pivot on that, but what happens is, in discussing this with the wedding planners, at that point they may not be able to get that person in that destination to do the legal wedding because they already have obligations on those given days, and you may have to flex time or location at the resort, specifically if it's a Catholic ceremony. So these are our top 3 places. It would be Mexico, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, and Jamaica for destination weddings. This is the information I can provide you about legal, but just remember, the majority of the weddings that we find we do are going to be symbolic weddings, and I've given you my reasons why. But if you do want a legal, hopefully this helps you with ideas on what to do for your legal destination wedding and what the expectations are. I'm Jack with Vacationees, and thanks for watching my videos.